Okay, let's unpack this. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife.
Hmm.
That iconic opening line, straight from Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, is our launch pad for today's deep dive.
And what's fascinating here is how immediately Austen just sets up the whole driving force. Marriage is the central, almost economic thing in their society.
Exactly. For the learner joining us, our mission is really to pull out the key insights from this amazing novel. We're looking at those kind of unspoken rules about society, expectations,
Yeah, and how class really impacts people's actual lives.
right, and the lessons about character that honestly still feel relevant today. Think of this as like your shortcut to understanding why Pride and Prejudice still matters. We'll dig into courtship, social games, personal growth, all that stuff.
And her main source is Austen herself, isn't it? Her sharp writing, right from the novel.
Directly from the novel. It's through her words we see it all so clearly. All right, so let's dive straight into those first impressions. The weight of social expectations. I mean, right away, a rich guy like Mr. Bingley shows up.
And it's not just, oh, a new neighbor. It's instantly potential husband, especially for families like the Bennets.
Totally. You feel that anticipation. It's almost strategic from Mrs. Bennet, isn't it? Her focus is laser sharp on husbands for her daughters the second she hears Netherfield is let.
It really highlights how back then a woman's security, her whole social standing was just so tied up in who she married.
Absolutely. And you see it play out perfectly at that first assembly in Meryton. Bingley, charming, friendly, talks to everyone.
Easygoing, yeah.
Then Darcy, his friend, keeps his distance, barely glances, seems completely aloof.
And the reaction is instant, isn't it? Proud, disagreeable.
Universally disliked,
Mm-hmm.
especially by Mrs. Bennet after he, snubs Elizabeth. It's such a stark contrast.
That contrast is key. Bingley does exactly what's expected. He's open, joins in. Darcy, he breaks the unwritten rules, like not chatting with Mrs. Long, and boom, judged harshly.
And Mrs. Bennet's retelling of the ball back home, it's, well, let's just say enthusiastic.
Definite focus.
All about Jane. So admired, Bingley thought her quite beautiful. And the big one, danced with her twice. Every little interaction is weighed for its marriage potential.
Those two dances are crucial. It shows just how much meaning was packed into these little social rituals. These events were basically a marriage market.
And we get the money details, too.
Right.
Bingley's got this big inheritance, plans to buy an estate. That adds another layer, right? It wasn't just about connection. Money was huge.
Exactly. His fortune makes him prime husband material. Planning to buy land just seals the deal for families like the Bennets. Money, status, marriage, all tangled together.
And those snap judgments, they weren't just about personality. Darcy apparently snubbing Mrs. Long because she didn't have a carriage. That becomes instant gossip, fuels the whole he's too proud narrative. Shows how tricky that social ladder was.
Right. Every little thing was watched, interpreted through the lens of class. Failing to make small talk with the right person could actually damage your reputation.
And Elizabeth, even early on, shows that spark, declaring she'd never dance with Darcy. Seems small, but in that world, it's quite a statement.
It really is. Women were expected to be, agreeable, available. Her saying that signals her strong will right away. She won't just follow the rules if she doesn't feel it.
But then you have Charlotte Lucas, always the pragmatist.
Mm-hmm.
She offers a different view on Darcy's pride. Says maybe a guy with his advantages, family, money, everything kind of has a right to be proud.
That's such a crucial counterpoint. Charlotte sees the reality of their world. She's suggesting pride for someone like Darcy might just be, well, expected, given his position. Maybe not nice, but understandable.
Okay, moving into the early courtship phase. All the social maneuvering. Catherine and Lydia are constantly off to Meryton.
They're vacant minds, as Austen puts it.
Right, drawn by the militia officers. It paints a picture, doesn't it? Not much else for them to do, maybe. Always looking for some excitement.
Definitely. It shows the limited social scene, especially for young women in the countryside. The soldiers showing up is like the biggest event happening, a temporary source of fun and maybe romance.
Then there's Miss Bingley. Her invitation to Jane feels, well, a bit off.
Yeah, totally transparent. Less like genuine warmth, more like keeping tabs on Jane, or maybe just keeping up appearances.
A rivalry, too, right, over Bingley.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like social obligation mixed with trying to stay in Bingley's good graces, maybe keeping Jane at arm's length, a performance, really.
And Elizabeth,
Uh,
trudging 3 miles through the mud to Netherfield when Jane gets sick, stockings ruined and all.
that says so much about her, doesn't it? Sisterly bond above everything. Forget appearances, she needs to be with Jane.
Exactly. True loyalty. It really
Of course.
solidifies her character values, real connection over superficial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So Elizabeth gets to Netherfield, and the subtle digs start flying. Miss Bingley making that comment about the Bennet's library.
Compared to Pemberley's huge collection, yeah.
Such a clear power play, right?
Yeah.
Trying to put Elizabeth down, reminder of her family's lesser status.
Definitely. A thinly veiled insult. All about highlighting her own connection to wealth and refinement, making Elizabeth feel small.
And Mr. Darcy's list for an accomplished woman: music, drawing, languages, reading.
Yeah.
It's intense.
It sounds impressive, but really it just shows how narrow society's view of female achievement was. These accomplishments were mostly about snagging a good husband, not necessarily about real intellectual growth.
The reactions to Jane being sick are also quite telling. The Bingley sisters are all, "Oh, we're so miserable." But then they're playing duets.
Right. Well, Mr. Bingley is actually quietly concerned, making sure she's okay.
Shows the difference between putting on a show and, genuine caring.
Exactly. The sisters are all drama, very little substance. Bingley's kindness is real but understated.
And back home, Mrs. Bennet bragging about that country social scene versus London.
And Darcy just sits there, silent.
That silence speaks volumes, doesn't it? His total dismissal of her claims.
It absolutely does. Shows his disdain for what he sees as her social climbing, her lack of sophistication compared to London circles.
You also see Miss Bingley trying so hard to get Darcy's attention. Then she tries to draw Elizabeth into conversation, kind of poking around about her and Darcy. The games never stop.
They really don't. She's playing the classic game, trying to flatter Darcy while maybe sizing up Elizabeth as competition, possibly undermining her.
But Elizabeth holds her own, doesn't she? Her witty replies, her sparring with Darcy about pride and vanity.
Mm.
She's smart. She doesn't back down.
Not at all. Her quick mind shines through. She refuses to be intimidated by their status and isn't afraid to challenge them, turn their own words back on them sometimes.
And through all this, we get these little hints that Darcy is fighting something internally. He's drawn to Elizabeth despite his prejudices about her family and background.
That's such a crucial part of his arc. His feelings clash directly with his ingrained snobbery. It's this internal battle that really drives his change later on.
Okay, let's talk about some unwelcome arrivals. Mr. Collins. Mr. Bennet's announcement is just perfectly dry and teasing, sets the stage for Mr. Collins.
Mr. Bennet's wit is always on point, isn't it? Highlighting the absurdity. And yeah, the build-up to Collins is classic.
And Collins delivers. The long apologies for intruding, the non-stop, over-the-top praise for Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Oh, the cringe.
Right. It immediately flags him as this total social climber, completely obsequious. What's your read on him?
He's basically the embodiment of trying to secure your future through connections, just taken to an extreme, almost comical level. All the name-dropping, the bowing and scraping. It shows how important patronage was, even if it meant looking ridiculous.
Yeah, Lady Catherine herself is built up as this huge figure, right? Rosings, her big estate, instantly signals her power. Even her daughter, Miss de Bourgh, despite being sickly, carries that weight.
Definitely. Lady Catherine's status gives her massive influence. People hang on her every word. And yeah, even Miss de Bourgh's poor health doesn't really lessen the social expectations around her, especially regarding marriage.
Even Lydia chimes in with gossip about her Uncle Phillips and the militia. Just shows how interconnected their little world is.
It does. That seemingly small detail underlines how tight-knit the community was. Everyone knew everyone's business, basically.
And Collins, with his pronouncements about young ladies not being interested in serious books. Ugh.
Yeah, that really reflects the attitude back then, doesn't it? Women were supposed to focus on accomplishments that made them marriageable, not necessarily develop their minds.
Then, bam! Collins switches his marriage focus from Jane, who he hears is likely taken straight to Elizabeth.
Super quick, yeah. Opportunistic.
And Mrs. Bennet is just ecstatic. 2 daughters potentially married off. Doesn't seem to matter who to or if they're happy.
Her priorities are crystal clear, aren't they? It's all about getting them settled, securing the family's position, compatibility, happiness. Way down the list.
Mr. Bennet, meanwhile, practically shoves Collins out the door to walk with the girls to Meryton. Anything to get back to his library.
Classic Mr. Bennet. His detachment, His preference for books over, well, Mr. Collins is always amusing.
And then Mr. Wickham arrives. Instantly charming, makes all the other officers look dull.
Oh, Wickham. First impressions can be so powerful, can't they? And so misleading.
He definitely makes a splash.
Yeah.
Demonstrates how charm can really win people over quickly.
Hmm.
Even the anticipation for parties at the Phillips's Place, lottery tickets, supper, it shows the scale of their social life, doesn't it? Simple pleasures.
Totally. These small gatherings were the main events, opportunities to socialize, maybe find a partner. It wasn't about grand balls all the time.
And Wickham's charm works wonders on Elizabeth. She's interested right away, especially when he starts talking about his past with Darcy.
And that's where the prejudice really starts to solidify, isn't it? She's already inclined to dislike Darcy.
So Wickham's story lands on very fertile ground, which brings us right to how those positive first impressions of Wickham get challenged and how Elizabeth's prejudice against Darcy deepens. Wickham's whole story, Darcy's father favoring him, promising him a living, Darcy denying it, it hits home for Elizabeth.
It's a very effective narrative, isn't it? It plays on ideas of fairness, injustice, the powerful mistreating the less fortunate. Told with Wickham's charm, it's easy to see why she'd buy it. It fits perfectly with her view of Darcy as arrogant.
Her belief in Wickham seems so strong initially, it really feeds her bias against Darcy. Classic confirmation bias, really. She hears something that fits her narrative and just accepts it.
Precisely. She's so ready to believe the worst of Darcy that she doesn't really question Wickham's story at all. Blinds her to any red flags.
Meanwhile, she's still dealing with the awkwardness of Mr. Collins's proposal hanging in the air, having to put up with his attentions, even briefly.
And realizing he chose her basically because Jane was unavailable. It wasn't about her specifically.
It's a convenient option, yeah. Shows how transactional marriage could be more about duty and ticking boxes for him than any real feeling.
Definitely illustrates the pressure to marry, to fill that expected role, even if it's completely devoid of affection. Elizabeth sees right through it.
And even though Mrs. Bennet is thrilled by the Collins prospect, any marriage is a good marriage. Elizabeth is just relieved to escape his awful dancing and general awkwardness.
That discomfort really drives home the potential misery of marrying someone you have zero connection with, just for security. It highlights how much Elizabeth actually values that connection.
But practical Charlotte offers different advice, right?
Yeah.
Tells Elizabeth maybe she should be a bit more polite to Darcy, even if she prefers Wickham.
Yeah, Charlotte's all about playing the social game. Keep up appearances, don't make enemies unnecessarily. Reputation was everything, especially for women.
Then there's that dance between Elizabeth and Darcy. Austen calls it a moment of surprised dignity. A little shift, maybe.
It's subtle, but yeah, being forced together like that, despite her dislike, maybe lets her see something else in him. Hints that her first impression might not be the whole story.
Sir William Lucas is trying his best to be charming, complimenting them both, hinting about Jane and Bingley. He just wants everyone paired off nicely.
He really does. His awkward matchmaking attempts just underline that constant pressure to form advantageous alliances.
And even Jane, sweet, trusting Jane, mentions that Bingley said something negative about Wickham. That plants a tiny seed of doubt, doesn't it? A crack in Wickham's perfect story.
It's the first little inconsistency Elizabeth hears from someone she trusts. It suggests Wickham's narrative might not be the whole truth. Doesn't change her mind yet, but it's there.
Okay, let's dig into the shifting alliances, the social dynamics. Mrs. Bennet is still completely obsessed with Jane marrying Bingley. It kind of overshadows everything else, including Elizabeth's own stuff.
Her focus is so narrow, isn't it? It really shows how the family unit's perceived needs, especially securing good marriages, could just steamroll individual feelings back then.
And then we have Mary's painful piano performances.
Oh, dear.
And Mr. Collins droning on about his duties as a clergyman. Little moments of social satire showing the performative side of things.
Definitely. Austen uses these moments to gently mock the social rituals, the self-importance of some characters. It all adds to the picture.
Mrs. Bennet is so sure Jane will get Bingley, and she's also pretty pleased about the prospect of Elizabeth marrying Collins. It really shows her skewed priorities, doesn't understand Elizabeth at all.
Not really. Her different levels of excitement for the potential matches just scream her social values, stability and status over happiness or actual compatibility.
So Collins makes his formal request to speak to Elizabeth alone. Orchestrated by Mrs. Bennet, of course. You just know it's coming.
The whole formal request thing highlights how ritualized proposals were, even when the match was obviously terrible like this one.
And Elizabeth's rejection is powerful, so firm. She absolutely refuses to marry him just because it's practical or expected.
It's a huge moment for her, standing up for herself, choosing affection over security, defying all that pressure. It's a real assertion of her independence.
Collins's reaction is almost funny, though. The self-pity, then quickly deciding maybe she wasn't such a great prize anyway.
Classic Collins. His ego is bruised, but he bounces back by rationalizing it away. Shows he never really cared about her, just about getting married. To anyone suitable, really.
Meanwhile, Miss Bingley is playing games again, trying to tell Jane that Bingley is actually into Miss Darcy.
Ugh, pure manipulation, driven by her own ambition to get closer to the Darcy family fortune and status.
It reveals that competitive streak among women vying for the best catches, doesn't it? Sometimes ruthless.
Definitely. The stakes were high, and she wasn't above undermining Jane to get what she wanted.
But Elizabeth doesn't buy it for a second. She totally believes Bingley genuinely likes Jane, shows her loyalty again.
And her ability to see through Miss Bingley's fakeness. She trusts her own gut, trusts Jane.
The sisters deciding to kind of downplay the Bingleys leaving town for Mrs. Bennet. It's like family damage control, right?
Totally. They know how dramatic their mom can be. It's strategic diplomacy, managing her emotions.
Life goes on, though. Socializing with the Lucases, Charlotte having to entertain Collins.
Got to keep up those connections in their little world, even when things are awkward or disappointing.
Elizabeth is grateful to Charlotte for distracting Collins, though. A nice moment between friends, even though they're on different paths now.
Yeah, it shows their friendship endures. Despite their different choices about marriage, they still understand each other on some level.
And then Charlotte makes her move. Strategically captures Collins' attention, leading to their engagement.
A purely pragmatic match. Security over romance. A stark contrast to Elizabeth's ideals.
And Sir William and Lady Lucas are thrilled. Shows what mattered most to parents, then a financially secure match for their daughter.
Absolutely. Their quick approval just highlights how central money and social standing were in marriage decisions.
Collins, meanwhile, blissfully unaware, eagerly accepts the Bennets' probably quite strained invitation to visit again.
He has zero self-awareness, does he? Thinks he's doing them a favor by connecting them to, well, himself.
And Mr. Bennet gets the last laugh, joking about Lady Catherine disapproving of Collins's visit, always finding the irony.
He really does. His sarcasm is like a running commentary on all the social nonsense around him.
So Elizabeth is reflecting on Charlotte's marriage, calls it unaccountable. It really throws her own romantic ideals into sharp relief, doesn't it? She can't quite grasp Charlotte's pragmatism.
That internal conflict is key for Elizabeth. It shows how deeply she believes in love and connection, and how hard it is for her to understand choosing security above all else.
Mr. Bennet's reaction is typical too, offering that cynical comfort about future heartbreaks, maybe hinting at his own experiences.
Possibly. It's sardonic, but maybe there's a layer of worldly wisdom there, a recognition that love isn't always straightforward or happy.
And the whole neighborhood turns against Darcy, based purely on Wickham's story. Shows how easily gossip and a good narrative can sway opinion, even without proof.
It's a powerful demonstration of hearsay, isn't it? Especially when the story fits existing biases, like the dislike for Darcy's pride. Reputations were so fragile.
Then Mrs. Gardiner arrives. A bit of a shift talk about fashion, local news. A welcome break, maybe.
Yeah, injects a bit of normalcy. A temporary escape from all the marriage drama.
But Mrs. Bennet can't help herself. Starts complaining again about missed marriage opportunities for her daughters. Still her teen focus.
Always. Her anxieties about getting them married off are constant.
Mrs. Gardiner, though, is more sensible. Has that serious chat with Elizabeth about Wickham, advising caution.
She offers that needed outside perspective, right? Urges Elizabeth to look beyond his charm, consider his actual character. A voice of reason.
And Elizabeth's reply is brilliant. Questioning where prudence ends and just being mercenary begins. Shows her sharp mind, her refusal of easy answers.
Exactly. She's thinking critically, recognizes the gray areas in why people marry, not easily swayed by simple advice.
Charlotte invites Elizabeth to visit her in Hunsford. A chance for Elizabeth to see Charlotte's new life up close.
Yeah, a change of scene and an opportunity to observe the reality of her friend's pragmatic choice. Offers a different perspective.
Meanwhile, Jane's still hoping for Bingley, even though Caroline Bingley is being awful to her in London. Shows Jane's kind nature, maybe a bit too trusting.
Her hopefulness is sweet, but yeah, maybe a little naive about Caroline's motives. She wants to believe the best.
Elizabeth sees right through it, though. Knows Caroline is deceiving Jane, reinforces her view of the Bingleys' snobbery.
And strengthens her protective feelings towards Jane.
Interestingly, Elizabeth seems less bothered about Wickham possibly leaving. Maybe her crush is fading.
It seems like it. Maybe Mrs. Gardner's warnings, or just time, are making her reassess him. A bit more pragmatic herself now, perhaps.
And Mrs. Gardner makes that sharp comment about Miss King maybe chasing Wickham for his future money. Another reminder of the financial angles.
Always lurking beneath the surface, isn't it? Money influencing romance. Mrs. Gardner sees it clearly.
So Elizabeth heads off to Hunsford. She's kind of looking forward to the journey, seeing Rosings, but mostly wants to see Charlotte, right?
It's a mix, yeah.
Yeah.
Obligation to visit her friend, but also curiosity about this grand estate and Charlotte's new setup.
Colin's welcome is predictably over the top. Constant references to Lady Catherine. We get it, Collins.
He hasn't changed a bit, has he? Still all about impressing through his connection to her.
Elizabeth finds it funny, but also a bit uncomfortable. Charlotte seems resigned. Shows the different ways they're handling things.
Definitely highlights the contrast. Elizabeth is amused but critical. Charlotte has accepted this is her life now.
The little scene with Collins proudly showing off his garden and Charlotte diplomatically praising it. It's quite revealing about their dynamic.
Yeah, shows Charlotte managing his ego, keeping the peace, the small strategies of her marriage.
Collins is buzzing about introducing Elizabeth to Lady Catherine at church, builds her up as this paragon of affability and condescension, sets the stage.
He has such reverence for her, completely missing the actual condescension in her manner towards people she sees as lower status.
And the introduction itself is, well, Mrs. Jenkinson and Mr. Berg are pretty underwhelming, aren't they? Thin, small, rude Mr. Berg. Not quite the grand circle Collins described.
The reality doesn't quite match the hype, does it? Mr. Berg is particularly disappointing, given her supposed importance.
Elizabeth's sarcastic thought about Mr. Berg being a suitable wife for Darcy. Sharp as ever. Shows she's still thinking about him, maybe.
It definitely shows her wit, her understanding of the social maneuvering around Darcy. And yeah, maybe hints he's still on her mind.
Lady Catherine's conversation is exactly what you'd expect. Domineering, nosy questions about the Bennets, unwanted advice for Charlotte.
Textbook aristocratic arrogance, her sense of entitlement, her belief she can just meddle in everyone's lives. It's stunning.
Her shock that all 5 Bennet sisters are out at once. Her pronouncements on propriety shows how rigid their rules were.
Oh, yeah. Strict conventions about debutantes, and she sees the Bennets as breaking the rules, especially for a family without much standing.
The card party at Rosings really shows the hierarchy, too. Lady C holding court, Mrs. Jenkinson's table looking incredibly dull.
It's like a mini snapshot of their world. Lady Catherine on top, dictating everything, others just filling the background.
Even her deciding the weather for the next day. And the elaborate goodbyes. All about control, performance.
Absolutely. Every little thing is an opportunity for her to assert dominance.
Elizabeth gives Charlotte a tactful, maybe not entirely honest, positive review of Rosings, being kind to her friend.
Shows her sensitivity. She understands Charlotte's situation, chooses kindness over blunt honesty.
And Collins immediately jumps in to echo Lady Catherine's praises, still her #1 fan.
Always eager to please. Reinforces his role as her devoted sycophant.
Then there's buzz about Darcy arriving with Colonel Fitzwilliam. Charlotte, especially, seems excited by the honor of their visit.
Their arrival definitely raises the social stakes at the parsonage. They're higher status, so it's a big deal, especially for Charlotte.
Darcy actually asks politely about Jane's health. Still thinking about the Bennets. Lingering concern, maybe.
It suggests something, doesn't it? An awareness, maybe responsibility, despite everything he said before.
Colonel Fitzwilliam is much easier to talk to, though. Agreeable manners, makes a nice contrast to Darcy's reserve.
Yeah, Fitzwilliam is more socially adept, approachable, lightens the mood.
Lady Catherine, of course, weighs in on Miss Darcy's music skills and gives Mrs. Collins more condescending advice. Never misses a chance.
Nope. Always the expert, always asserting her opinions, whether they're wanted or not.
Darcy still seems a bit awkward in these later moments, especially when Elizabeth teases him. Maybe a hint of vulnerability there.
It does suggest there's more to him than just pride. Maybe shyness or just discomfort with small talk. Makes him seem a little less formidable.
Fitzwilliam compliments Elizabeth's liveliness, seems to appreciate her spirit. Interesting how Darcy's connections react differently to her.
It is. Fitzwilliam sees her intelligence, her spark, unlike Darcy's initial judgment.
Elizabeth watches Darcy and Mr. Berg together, sees zero romantic spark. Undermines Lady Catherine's big plans for them. She's a sharp observer.
Her observation is key. It confirms there's no actual connection there, despite Lady Catherine's wishes.
They even talk about the distance between Hunsford and Longbourn again, still highlighting the different perspectives based on class and travel ease.
A subtle reminder of the social divide, yeah. What's a short trip for Darcy is a bigger undertaking for the Bennets.
Fitzwilliam's comments about needing money to marry. Elizabeth wonders if that's aimed at her, makes her aware of the financial hurdles.
Those remarks really bring the money issue to the forefront for her, makes her conscious of how her family's finances might look to someone like Darcy or Fitzwilliam.
And Fitzwilliam notices Darcy paying a lot of attention to Elizabeth. It's clear Darcy's feelings have shifted significantly.
Fitzwilliam's observation confirms it. Darcy is definitely interested, a huge change from his earlier behavior.
And then, boom, Darcy's proposal, so sudden, declaring his love despite her lower status, her family. It's packed with contradictions.
It really is. He loves her, but he can't help mentioning all the reasons he shouldn't, according to society. A very conflicted declaration.
He even admits he fought against his feelings, still clearly thinks he's socially superior. Which, yeah, Elizabeth finds pretty insulting. Not exactly swoon-worthy.
No kidding. His internal battle is clear, but that lingering arrogance just poisons the whole proposal.
Her reaction is fierce, though. Surprised, maybe a little flattered, but mostly just angry about his pride, his manners, and especially his messing with Jane and Bingley. It's a hard no.
Absolutely. His condescension, her resentment about Jane, her own pride, it all fuels that powerful rejection.
And she throws Wickham in his face, too. Still totally believes Wickham's story, uses it as another reason to reject Darcy. Her prejudice is strong.
Her faith in Wickham is still absolute at this point. It blinds her completely and justifies in her mind her view of Darcy as villainous.
Darcy is stunned, genuinely shocked and hurt. He clearly didn't expect her to say no.
His surprise shows how much he misread her, how confident he was that his offer, even with its flaws, would be accepted because of who he is. Big miscalculation.
He tries to defend messing with Bingley, thought Jane wasn't interested, was protecting his friend, but it's still based on his own biased judgment.
He explains his reasoning, frames it as loyalty, but yeah, it's still rooted in his assessment of Jane's reserved personality and the Bennets' social standing.
He also vaguely mentions Wickham, hints there's another side to that story, but doesn't give details yet, just plants a seed.
Right, just enough to suggest Wickham isn't who Elizabeth thinks he is, but not the full story.
And his open disdain for her family connections is the final insult, really. Just reinforces her anger and the social gap he can't seem to get over.
That final jab about her family just confirms her reasons for refusal. It highlights the huge barrier he still perceives between them.
So Elizabeth is completely shaken up after that whole proposal drama, and then Darcy hands her a letter the next morning. This letter changes everything, doesn't it?
It's absolutely pivotal. She's already reeling. And this letter is about to force her to reconsider everything she thought she knew.
It explains his side of the Jane and Bingley mess, how he saw Jane as indifferent, thought he was saving Bingley from a bad match. He even admits hiding Jane being in London from Bingley. It's quite the confession.
Yeah, he lays out his justification, his interpretation of Jane's quietness. Admitting he actively kept them apart is a big reveal.
But the bombshell is the Wickham part. The letter details Wickham's history, the money problems, gambling, trying to manipulate Darcy's father's will, and the absolute shocker, trying to elope with Darcy's 15-year-old sister Georgiana for her fortune.
That's the part that just demolishes Wickham's story. It exposes him as this manipulative, deceitful character willing to ruin a young girl for money. It completely flips the narrative Elizabeth believed.
Elizabeth reading this, she must be floored, totally shocked, forced to rethink both Darcy and Wickham, and the embarrassment she must feel about her own prejudice.
Wow, it's a massive moment of reckoning for her. Confronting her own biases, realizing how wrong she was, how easily she was fooled, leads to a lot of shame and serious self-reflection.
Okay, so back to Longbourn. The sisters return, and Lydia is buzzing about going to Brighton with the regiment. Elizabeth strongly objects, sees the danger, the potential damage to their reputation.
But Mr. Bennet, in his usual detached way, kind of just lets it happen. Thinks Brighton can't be much worse than Longbourn for Lydia. Elizabeth is clearly unhappy with that decision.
Lydia is ecstatic, though, completely oblivious to the risks. Her farewell is so superficial compared to Elizabeth's deep worries about scandal and family honor. The maturity gap is huge.
Totally. Lydia's just chasing fun, no thought for consequences. Elizabeth understands the very real social dangers involved.
After Lydia leaves, things quiet down a bit. Then the gardeners visit and suggest taking Elizabeth to Derbyshire, a welcome distraction maybe.
Definitely. A change of scene, a chance for Elizabeth to process everything, get away from Longbourn for a bit. The Gardners are always so supportive.
And in Derbyshire, Mrs. Gardner wants to see Pemberley, Darcy's estate. Partly because she knows people nearby, partly,
Yeah.
well, Wickham used to live around there.
Yeah.
Elizabeth is hesitant, obviously. Complicated feelings about Darcy.
That suggestion puts Elizabeth in a really awkward spot, doesn't it? Forces her to confront her feelings about Darcy right there on his doorstep, almost literally.
So they go, and the housekeeper, Mrs. Reynolds, gives them this glowing tour. She clearly adores Darcy and his sister, paints such a different picture of him, kind, generous, a good master.
Mrs. Reynolds' perspective is huge. It humanizes Darcy completely. It contradicts everything Elizabeth thought, shows a side of him she'd never imagined.
And Pemberley itself, the house, the grounds, it's stunning. Shows his wealth, his taste, but also the massive social difference between them. It's his world.
The grandeur of Pemberley really underscores Darcy's status, which was part of Elizabeth's initial prejudice. Now it's just context.
Mrs. Reynolds just keeps praising him. More evidence against Elizabeth's first impressions, against Wickham's lies.
Her high opinion is compelling. It strongly suggests Darcy's character is much better than Elizabeth believed.
And then, the man himself shows up. Darcy arrives home unexpectedly while they're still there. Can you imagine the mortification for Elizabeth? Being caught at his house after rejecting him so fiercely.
Oh, the awkwardness. It must have been incredibly intense. Suddenly they have to interact again in his territory with this whole new dynamic between them.
But Darcy is different. Surprisingly polite, cordial to her and the Gardners. He even introduces her to Georgiana, his sister, who's shy but nice. It's a total turnaround from his old self.
His changed behavior is striking. Welcoming, gracious, wanting Elizabeth and Georgiana to meet. It shows a real transformation, a desire to connect.
Just as Elizabeth might be relaxing slightly, Miss Bingley arrives, Ice Queen. Cold to Elizabeth, making nasty little digs about the militia, about Wickham. Still hasn't changed.
Miss Bingley brings back that reminder of the social prejudice Elizabeth faces. Some people just won't let go of their snobbery.
But Elizabeth handles it calmly. And Darcy. He actually defends Elizabeth and Georgiana. Steps in, shows where his loyalty lies now. That's significant.
Hugely significant. Him publicly siding with them against Miss Bingley's cattiness shows a massive shift in his feelings and priorities.
And he clearly wants Elizabeth and Georgiana to get along. Suggests he's genuinely hoping for some kind of future connection, despite the social differences he used to harp on.
His efforts to bring them together really underline that hope. He seems committed to overcoming those barriers now.
As Elizabeth thinks about Darcy's changed behavior at Pemberley, she starts feeling respect, gratitude. It's a huge shift from her earlier prejudice.
That reflection is key. Seeing his kindness firsthand forces her to question her judgments, starts building respect for the man he actually is.
Bingley shows up too, greets Elizabeth warmly. Seems like his feelings for Jane haven't died after all. A little hope there.
His friendly greeting definitely hints that his affection for Jane might still be there, despite everything that happened.
Elizabeth watches Bingley with Georgiana, sees no romance there, but notices him glancing her way sometimes. Maybe he is still thinking about Jane. She's hopeful.
Her observations are sharp. No spark with Georgiana, but lingering looks towards Elizabeth fuels her hope for Jane's happiness.
Darcy keeps trying to get Elizabeth and Georgiana talking. Still working to bridge that gap, show Elizabeth his world isn't all bad.
His deliberate efforts show his sincerity, his desire for a positive connection between the two women he cares about.
He even asks subtly about the militia leaving Meryton, maybe trying to gauge the Wickham situation without being too direct.
Could be. Shows awareness of Wickham's connection to her past, maybe trying to see if that's truly over for her.
But just as things are looking up,
Yeah.
disaster strikes. That letter from Jane arrives. Lydia has run off with Wickham.
Oh, the timing. Just as hope is blooming, this massive scandal crashes down, threatening to ruin everything.
The family is thrown into chaos. Mr. Bennet rushes to London with Colonel Forster. Elizabeth is consumed with guilt. She knew Wickham was bad, feels she should have warned people, and terrified for the family's reputation.
Her distress is immense. Guilt over misjudging Wickham, fear for Lydia, shame for the family. It's devastating.
The Gardners are amazing, though. Hear the news, immediately head back to help. Elizabeth tells them what little she knows. Mr. Gardner promises to do everything he can. Their support must have meant the world.
Absolutely. Their quick, selfless action shows their love for Elizabeth and the family, a crucial source of practical help and comfort.
That frantic journey back to Longbourn. Elizabeth is probably replaying everything in her head, remembering hints from Darcy from Fitzwilliam that she missed about Wickham. Hindsight is brutal.
Definitely. The journey must be filled with regret, finally understanding the warnings she didn't heed before.
And Lydia's note to Mrs. Forster just confirms how reckless and thoughtless she was. Adds insult to injury, really.
Her flippant note shows she has zero grasp of the seriousness of the situation, making it even more painful for the family.
Back at Longbourn, it's pure chaos. Mrs. Bennet is hysterical, naturally. Mrs. Gardiner, more practically, plans to go to London herself to help search.
Predictable reactions, aren't they? Mrs. Bennet's drama versus Mrs. Gardiner's level-headed approach to the crisis.
And Mr. Bennet returns with news. A marriage has been arranged, thanks to Mr. Gardiner stepping in, making financial arrangements. Jane and Elizabeth are relieved, grateful, but worried about the cost to their uncle.
That news is a huge relief, averting total disaster. But yeah, the gratitude is mixed with real concern about the financial burden Mr. Gardiner took on.
Mr. Bennet seems cynically relieved. The family's emotions are all over the place. Relief, shame over Lydia, huge gratitude to Mr. Gardiner, except Mrs. Bennet, who's just thrilled Lydia's getting married, seemingly ignoring the scandal.
The different reactions are so telling. Mrs. Bennet's superficial joy just highlights her complete lack of understanding about honor and reputation.
Afterwards, Mr. Bennet feels bad about his past money management, vows to repay Mr. Gardiner, shows some growth there. They reluctantly agree to let Lydia and Wickham visit after the wedding. Must have been tough.
Mr. Bennet's remorse is significant. And yeah, having Lydia and Wickham back must have been incredibly difficult, a necessary evil to maintain appearances.
And the visit is awkward. Lydia's loud, totally unrepentant. Wickham turns on the charm. The sisters are just embarrassed.
Their lack of shame is galling, isn't it? Creates such discomfort for everyone else.
Then Lydia drops that casual comment Darcy was at the wedding. Helped out somehow. A little detail that unlocks a huge secret.
That offhand remark is the key. Hints at Darcy's involvement, which is completely unexpected.
Because Mrs. Gardiner's letter reveals the whole truth. Darcy did everything. Found them, persuaded Wickham to marry Lydia, paid off Wickham's massive debts, settled money on Lydia, even bribed someone for information. It's incredible.
The full extent of Darcy's actions is just staggering. So generous, so selfless, it completely shatters Elizabeth's remaining negative perceptions and shows his true, honorable character.
Mrs. Gardiner is clearly impressed, too. Her opinion of Darcy flips completely, and she gently hints to Elizabeth that Darcy probably still has feelings for her.
Mrs. Gardiner's changed view, her encouragement. It opens the door for Elizabeth to truly understand Darcy and maybe hope for a future.
Elizabeth is overwhelmed. Gratitude, astonishment, and the undeniable realization of who Darcy really is. Her prejudice is just gone, replaced by admiration, maybe more.
It's a profound emotional shift. Everything she thought about him was wrong. Now she sees his true worth, his depth of character.
Life settles down again, sort of. Mrs. Bennet keeps trying to push Elizabeth towards Bingley, totally clueless about where Elizabeth's heart is now.
Poor Mrs. Bennet, still playing matchmaker, completely unaware of the huge internal changes in Elizabeth.
Jane and Bingley, though, find their way back to each other quietly. Their affection endured. It's a much simpler path to happiness for them.
Their reunion is sweet, isn't it? A nice contrast to the drama Elizabeth and Darcy went through. Shows that sometimes love finds an easier way.
Then, Lady Catherine de Bourgh descends upon Longbourn, storms in, demands Elizabeth promise never to marry Darcy. His family objects, he's meant for Miss de Bourgh. It's her final desperate attempt to control things.
What an entrance! Lady Catherine represents that final, massive obstacle, aristocratic pride, family expectations, trying to force Darcy's hand.
But Elizabeth stands up to her, refuses to promise anything, defends her own worth, Darcy's right to choose. It's an amazing display of courage and self-respect.
It really shows how much Elizabeth has grown. She's confident, won't be intimidated, stands firm on her principles and feelings.
And of course, Mr. Collins writes a letter about it all, full of Lady Catherine's outrage and his own useless, pompous advice. A little comic relief amidst the tension.
Classic Collins, chiming in with his irrelevant opinions, perfectly highlights his own absurdity one last time.
And then finally, Darcy returns. His second proposal is completely different. Humble, sincere, admitting his faults.
This time he gets it right. No pride, just honesty and love.
And Elizabeth accepts. Heartfelt, joyful, pride and prejudice finally conquered by love and understanding. Jane and Bingley get engaged too. Even Lady Catherine eventually, grudgingly, accepts it all. Happy endings all around.
It's a deeply satisfying resolution, isn't it? Both couples overcome their obstacles, internal and external, and find happiness based on genuine affection and mutual respect.
So for the learner, this deep dive really shows how misleading first impressions can be, right? And how powerful society's pressures were.
Absolutely. The rules, the class distinctions, they shaped everything. But it also shows the power of personal growth, of challenging your own biases.
And the characters are so complex. We peel back layers, see unexpected depths. The aha moments come when you grasp their motivations, tied so closely to their world.
But those motivations, the desire for security, for love, the impact of pride, of prejudice, they still resonate, don't they?
They really do. Hopefully you've got a good feel for this classic now without it feeling like homework.
And it leaves you thinking, how much do social expectations, our own snap judgments, still affect our lives, our relationships today?
That's a great question. How do we overcome our own pride and prejudice?
Yeah.
Definitely something to mull over.
We really hope you'll maybe pick up the book again with fresh eyes or explore more about it. There's always more to find in these brilliant stories.